you like cars.
Yep.
So is it too techy how we talk, or is it actually fine?
Sometimes. I would say sometimes for me it's I have to really focus on the
Is it
conversation.
50-50?
Yeah, I would say so.
50-50 is good
I'll
though,
take that. Yeah.
because that engages people who are interested like you, but
Yeah.
don't actually are not so deep yet.
Mm-hmm.
But I think our dynamic is that you're more techie than I am. I just half of the time go on what I like, right?
Well, it's because when I look at a car, I look at what it is, and you look at what it can be and
Yeah.
what you can do with it,
Fair enough.
right?
Fair enough.
So you're like the creative type.
I'm an artist.
You're an artist. He's an artist.
I'm an artist, guys.
Okay. I would like to welcome everyone to the first trial episode of some kind of podcast we're trying to put on. I know that everyone in my audience normally knows me as someone who speaks German, and actually, my channel should stay German. So let's treat this like an experiment. Maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't. My guest for this first podcast is one of my very closest friends, and his name is Florin. He's from Bucharest, and he came here featuring his own brand, which is called FJC. Now I said FJC
It's
myself.
fine. It's fine.
With his own brand that is called FGC Vision, which is based in Bucharest. You can actually see one of his very own car back there that has been through the FGC treatment. No one knows, but Florin lived in Austria close to 3 years, but didn't manage to learn German. So here we are.
Right.
We're forced to talk English. Insects, man. How about you just present yourself, and then we'll just get into our flow, anyways.
Right. So as he said, Florin, nice to meet you guys. So, backstory a bit. I lived in Austria for 3 years. Like he said, I was studying here, hotel management, but then I went back home and I decided to go my own path. Where I'm lucky enough to follow my passion, and to be able to do that is just something that I've always dreamed about. And yeah, I decided to personalize cars basically for a living.
So basically, for anyone who's been chilling with Flo and me knows that it's a very very bad combination to third wheel us, because it the probability of us just rambling on about random car topics and running amok with it is very very high. We just keep sharing information, but also it's fun because we let the inner 9-year-olds run
Freak out.
free, right?
Yeah,
Just run free,
basically.
and it a lot of times it ends up with hour-long conversation about stuff we already went over like
Yeah.
10,000 times. It's fun. Actually, we were supposed to be at a tuning car meetup right now. Actually, I checked out the Instagram. It's full of cars. So
Really?
people were, yeah, I think there's around 150, 200 cars that are there.
That's good.
And yeah, man, it's just, it's kind of like a battle between evil and good. But right now, as it's turning out, I think that the bigger part of the Viennese car scene has learned that if they just show up and they don't do stupid stuff, the police will leave us be and let
Yeah,
us have our
fair
fun.
enough.
Yeah.
But it was
And
always better than in Romania, though.
mm,
Like you got it easy here, because in Romania it's just wild. It's just a jungle. Like when
yeah.
people do car meets, it gets bad real quick, right? So I always really appreciated being here at car events because
Mm.
everybody was so chill. But like you said, it's different
You
perspectives,
mean the
right?
people are chill, and
The
in
people are
Romania
chill.
it's the people that are not chill, or is
Yeah,
it the police?
both,
Right.
both.
Okay.
Because they're asking for it. Like,
Sure.
okay, so here, like you might see a nice car, nice rims and everything, but
Mm-hmm.
there you just see ratchet
He's
ass.
gonna say it.
Gonna say it, man.
Trash cars.
Yeah,
Yeah.
more or less. There's no middle ground. It's you basically buy a Dacia Logan, slam that stuff, and then straight pipe it.
Fair enough.
Or you're fortunate enough to evade taxes well enough so that you can buy an M5, right?
Yeah.
And do the same thing but on a different level.
Yeah. But I actually I was under the understanding that that in Romania there's like a subset of people who organize meets between themselves, and they're quite fun. Because
Right.
here the big problem that we have is that even if the people are chill and we just want to get together and we do have one evening where no one really does excessive burnouts or there's noise complaints about someone revving their GTI until the engine blows, is that there's a real motivation of the police to paint us in a very, very bad picture. So there's a lot of times where they're really looking to prosecute people. And they show up at the events and they just catch you getting something out of the trunk from your car.
Mm-hmm.
And that's reason enough for them to come and speak to you about your rims and why it's so low. And it really ends up a lot of times with them taking license plates away.
Yeah.
Where at the end it turns out that, okay, sometimes there's cars where people actually fiddled with them in their garage and they are a danger to society. They really are.
Basically.
And in that case, I'm fine with it. But those cars are usually so badly mended
Mm-hmm.
that it's very obvious they shouldn't participate in traffic.
Sure.
But then
But then
there's
where do they draw the line?
so that's the
Right.
problem, right? Because like, okay, everything's been laid out by the law, and there's a certain subset of police officers that have been schooled and they have been taught how to assess certain types of illegal tuning things, but they are impossibly know everything, right?
Yeah.
So it happens so often that they see a GTI and they ask the guy to pop the hood, whereas every car guy would see instantly that the car is stock. It has to be, because it doesn't have different rims, it doesn't have spacers, it's not even lowered. There's maybe just different exhaust tips, but not even a different exhaust.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's reason for them enough to harass you for half an hour, right?
Right. But you said the most important thing, whereas us car guys would see that not everybody is a car guy at the end of the day. Like I do get what they mean.
Exactly, yeah.
They're doing their job. It's just that I would really consider that if you're gonna do that as a police officer, you should know your stuff.
We have a lot of friends that actually are very intrigued by it.
Yeah.
For the sole fact that we're so obsessed of going, right?
Yeah.
So while everyone's going out to clubs, we don't even consider that possibility. Friday night, Saturday night is car meeting night. So
Yeah.
people come with us and then they actually see how deep that rabbit hole actually goes. And a question that I get a lot of times when people are so amazed by how much stuff there is to know about cars and how much we actually know is like, how can I start knowing about cars? How can I start learning about cars? And I've always perceived this question as one of the hardest questions, next to
Truly is.
what's the best car, right?
Right,
So these are
right.
the questions. There's no right answer.
What's
to
your
them.
favorite car?
What's your favorite car is still, but like, what's the best car? It's way too objective, and we're too subjective to answer it.
Fair enough.
So I've always struggled with how is someone supposed to learn about cars just to get the logic behind. There's a brand, and the brand has different models, and then the models have different engine levels or
Mhm.
engine
Layouts or displacements.
displacements, and there's diesel and there's petrol engines,
And
and then
there's hybrid.
there's hybrids,
And then you get the rotaries.
and you get
which
the
is a
rotary.
whole nother level.
Yeah.
Right.
So
So-
that's a topic I want to talk about. For
Sure.
all those people right out there who want to really start becoming car freaks like we are, but you really don't know where to start. I mean, the obvious thing is just to watch car content. I mean,
I mean, that would be the easiest answer. But
Yeah.
then I would go one step further.
yeah.
I would go, right, so most likely you know somebody or you own a car, right? Just start trying to understand your car and do
Yeah.
the most basic stuff. Just find the oil plug, for example, right? Look under the hood, see what happens, see what's doing what, right? Just maintenance stuff, basically,
Yeah.
right? So you can start from there. But then I guess it's a really deep rabbit hole, right? Because then you can know about cars, you can know how to like change your oil and stuff like that. But then
Yeah.
when it comes to, okay, performance modes, that's a whole,
You have no idea.
right?
Yeah.
Right. But do you remember how you like started getting into cars? Can honestly, I don't. I just always watched car content. It was always a passion for me. And for somebody who didn't, let's say, grew up with that, I think it's way harder to get into it because we're talking mostly from experience, but also because we waste hours on end just trying to
Yeah.
learn and understand, and we get so happy to like discover new stuff that
Yeah.
you never thought about,
It's
right?
it's almost an unhealthy
Obsession,
obsession.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No,
You
I
know,
got into cars because it was a given.
fair enough.
Because my dad used to sell insurance, and then
Yeah.
during summers when kindergarten, no, actually I wasn't even old enough to go into to kindergarten. I was literally just started walking and talking. And he used to take me in the car and always point at the logos and the rims, and he used to teach me the brands. So when I was almost 2 years old, I could identify like 52 brands from the logo. And he actually signed me up. People who live in Austria and Germany will still know the talk show. It's called Wetten das. And he actually signed me up to participate. They
What's wet
refused.
and das?
So Wetten das is one of the biggest talk show formats that used. Actually, it
Right.
was. I think it was the most famous talk show.
So like your basic 7 a.m. talk show.
Not 7 a.m. It was
Right.
the once a month.
Okay.
I think it was the last or first Saturday of the month, and then it consisted of this really famous presenter called Thomas Gottschalk,
Okay.
who people know from the Haribo ads. It's an old dude with like golden hair, and he always has fancy suits on. He's really fun, and he used to be able to get the biggest superstars of the world on his bench. So even though it was in Germany, every month he managed to get at least one A-lister from America on his bench. So it ranged from Michael Jackson to George Michael to like I don't know, Brad Pitt. All
Okay.
kinds of famous people used to sit on the bench. And then the show consists of 5 or 6 challengers that get chosen, right? And then they get to come and say, I can guess the color of coloring pencils just by how they taste.
Sure.
So then
Okay.
this challenge would be attributed to one of the superstars.
Superstars.
And
so
the
they would have to do
superstar-
the
No, no,
same thing.
no,
or-
no, no. And the
Okay.
superstar had to guess whether the guy is really capable of it or not, right?
Oh,
So the guy
okay.
would come, he would present his talent. There was even one where I think it was something like the guy could guess the cars just by knocking on the fenders and stuff,
No way.
which was bullshit.
Come on.
He couldn't do it.
Right. Okay.
He failed. But the one with the pencils actually existed. There was another one where the teacher, or I think it was either the teacher of a class, was able to identify people just by the way they swallow. So they would put a mic up to their
Throat.
throat, and they
Right.
would swallow take a sip of water, and he would guess which pupil it was.
Damn.
Yeah, and then there's actually a whole science behind it, how your palate is formed, and that's why it makes different sounds. And like, if you have an Adam's apple, it's the whole anatomy of like your esophagus, basically.
Okay.
But anyways, it was that show, but they refused to take me because they said he's too small, and if he doesn't perform in front of the audience, it's a huge problem. So what they did is just they send a lady, and I do have the VHS tape, and actually it gives me an idea. I really want to publish it on my YouTube channel. Like
Really?
18-month-old Ramtin with locks as long as his shoulders, sitting there, didn't speak German yet, but I knew what a Bentley was.
Oh yeah.
So
That's that. You got your
that's
priorities straight.
that was the shit. Yeah.
Right. So
So-
circling back, because we kind of veered off.
Yeah.
Like, but it gave me time to think, right? So what I would do, so there's 3 major categories of cars. You got Americans, you got Europeans, and then you got JDMs, right? If you can,
That's pretty much
Right?
it. Yeah.
basically. So I would fill out each of them, see what I like, because you might be into JDMs. We are into European cars, right?
Which is fine. We're a
Sure.
diverse community in that way.
You don't have to be politically correct. It's your podcast. Right.
Yeah.
So then I would just go down that rabbit hole. there's specific cars in each category. For example, JDM, you got the Supra. Everybody knows about the Supra. Like, try to find out more stuff about the Supra and why the Supra is really overrated. Controversial.
Oh, damn.
Controversial.
Right from the beginning. Here
Right,
we go.
right,
Or
right.
maybe pick out like the three big ones, right? The
Could be.
Supra, the Skyline, and then the RX-7. That you got
Which is
diversity
also
right there.
controversial because then you have the NSX, right?
Sure. But then at least you got a rotary in there to learn about,
Yeah,
right?
true.
So that gives you that.
Right. So learn about those three.
Yeah.
And then.
Or like take the Americans and then take the Challenger, Mustang, and Camaro, and
Yeah.
just read those histories,
Right?
because it pretty much sums up American car history, right? American cars, for example, is one of the rabbit holes. I
That's
don't think
easy to
there's.
get into.
Yeah, it's easy to get into, but
Because
there's
it's been
not
the
many
same
people.
thing for like
Listen,
years.
you know how much we know about cars. I went to an old timer show just last week.
Yeah?
There was a car brand called Edsel. I had never heard about that car ever before.
Okay.
And it's because back then, like the Ford Group or GM, they used to have so many brands that just were one show wonders and then they disappeared. So
Okay.
Edsel was apparently a car that I'm gonna search it up actually. There's so many like Delahaye. You know, if
Right,
you really
yeah.
go back to those 20s and 30s, there were so many car brands in America, but also in England.
Sure.
There's like 200 brands in England
Sure.
that died off, right?
Yeah, but there's also like
So-
300 brands in Japan. what
Exactly.
died off,
So
right?
get the most mainstream shit. Mainstream is not always good, but it's important because it gives you the main idea of everything. So if you want to go German market, there's the
Well,
well, is it? No, it's
So-
let's stay cool now, and then we'll elaborate later on. But there's the three main brands you need to have your eye on, and those brands are BMW. Actually, it's fine. BMW, Mercedes, and Porsche.
oh, right, but then
And when you have
you
time
said
left,
Europe though, not Germany.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, right, because Europe is
Europe, okay. Fine.
Europe's Europe.
Well,
So
then
if I would go Europe, we
Italy,
have
Germany,
to consider.
England.
Sorry.
So you take one car, one out of Italy, one out of Germany, one out of
Right.
England.
So from Italy, the obvious answer is Ferrari because
Well,
of the history.
I actually wrote it down because that was one of the things when I was brainstorming is if you want to get to know about sports cars in particular and you like because you know already what you like, you already know what kind of car sparks your interest or gets you running, you know. If you like Italian cars, then I think the V8s from Ferrari is a really good red line through their history you can
Right.
follow, right?
Fair enough. Yeah.
And it
yeah.
takes you from transversally mounted V8s to longitudinally mounted V8s, then different kind of configurations up to the turbo era, which we are
Right.
in right now.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's a good part to start.
Yeah.
And then the main car I think everyone can start with. Actually, there's two. I think if you start with BMW's E36, that's a really good way of getting into a very, very mainstream kind of car milieu, right? Because you understand how BMW model names work. It's also really important you get the nomenclature. Because when you get into cars, you're going to see a lot of letters and numbers being thrown around, like
Yeah.
the whole engine displacement stuff. Then it's like it's a turbo diesel injection. Then there's like CDI, common rail diesel injection. There's like 1,000 CRDI. Like every brand has their own kind of abbreviation for the same thing also.
Fair
you
enough.
know?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
the
no, they
diesel
do.
cars, they have AdBlue. Some
Some
cars
don't.
don't mention it. Then
Yeah.
Mercedes calls it blue efficiency. VW calls it what, blue emotion or something.
Yeah, something like that.
So you really have to just concentrate on one brand, on one model, and one like generation in particular. And I believe the E36 sparks a lot of interest because it's one of the most beloved German cars in general and BMW models. And then you will understand how BMW models are ranked, right? So the E36 starts off with, first of all, you have a coupe, you have a four-door, you have a you have a compact, and you have a cabriolet, and then there's the wagon also.
Right.
Did I mention the wagon?
Yeah.
There's five of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
No,
So
you're
you
good.
have all the different configuration a car can have, but then also it starts off with the 316i, and then you learn that the 3 stands for the 3 series, for the size of the car basically itself within the BMW range of cars. And then the 16 stands for 1.6. And then if you read up on it, you'll learn that there's 4 cylinders. And then from the 320i, as we have one here, they start to become 6 cylinders. And as they move up, they get more powerful. And then it ends up with the M3. And then you get to know the M GmbH, which is basically the house intern tuning company from BMW that takes motorsport parts and makes the cars really sporty. And I think the E36 is a really good point to start from.
I do agree. I would go a few generations newer. I would go E92, E90.
Also good.
Because it's technologically advanced enough so you understand a few concepts. Because if you want to understand cars, you can't just know about cars. You have to have a feeling for them, right?
Yeah.
It's technologically advanced. It also has a plethora of models, basically, right?
Yeah. And they
And
were
then-
still kind of true to the nomenclature
Right.
of like how the logic worked.
And then if you think about E90, E92s, then you obviously think about the M3, right?
Right.
And then you have the V8, right? And
Okay,
for
yeah.
that generation and for those specific cars, it was, well, looking back at it, when you were living in that and you had like the money to afford it, a
Mm.
V8 wouldn't been such a cool thing. But then now, right?
Looking back.
Looking back, the V8 was, and you had the V10 on the M5,
Yeah.
which was like
Crazy.
amazing, right?
Yeah.
So then I think they really got the opportunity to get creative with their cars in that specific period of time,
Yeah.
and I think it's a way harder rabbit hole to go through because this is easy to understand.
That's why I think you can start off really
Right.
easily,
Right.
because this is literally 2 hours worth reading on Wikipedia.
Yeah. Fair
And then
enough.
you basically have everything learned by heart.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And then
yeah.
the E90 is actually a really good middle point,
Because then you can also kind of from
Yeah.
like the E90, E92, you can also understand how the newer generations model, the new generation models are kind of developing. As in, you don't have just the 3 series anymore.
it
You have
reaches
the 4
forward
series.
and it reaches backwards,
Right.
and it has all-wheel drive versions where the
Right.
E36 does
Didn't.
not have any. Yeah.
Exactly.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So then you
I
have the
agree.
X-Drive, and the X-Drive is just, as we know, amazing.
Amazing now.
Right.
Yeah. So I would say the E36 is a really cool bed lecture to start off with, just
Yeah.
to get a feel of
Just to dip your
what
toes in.
BMW really is, because you understand the philosophy of the brand really well. And then the E90 is a really good window into the what we have. It's actually a really good window into what kind of cars are driving by
All the
every
time,
day,
basically.
all the time.
And then you can, which I find really interesting, you can, with the A90, you can truly go into like the tuning scene
Yeah.
and customization and
And
performance.
it's still true tuning,
Right, yeah, it's bare metal,
It
true
lets you
stuff.
do stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
but
Yeah.
but you don't need to bring a custom ECU, because it has a modern ECU you can work with already.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's
Yeah.
modern enough
Yeah.
so that you can go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and also like you don't need to remove any soft limiters. It's like proper tuning. You're
Yeah.
really going for like ignition timing and stuff like that, instead of
Petrol
soft
and air
limiters
mixing
and you
and
know all
stuff
the
like
Audi
that.
problems that are out there basically.
You're gonna get red flags.
No, man, because like they've been doing soft limiters way longer than we actually were mad at them for. I didn't
True.
realize that until
But then, do
I-
you really want to rev an Audi?
some of them you really
Some of
wanted
them
to.
you do, yeah.
The
yeah,
old
yeah.
4.2
Yeah,
V8
fair
sounded
enough.
amazing.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But I don't know why. I've asked people the soft limiters. You know, it's such a killjoy.
I
Yeah.
guess it just boils down to pleasing the population.
Does it really though?
For us, it doesn't make any sense.
Because
But
okay,
then
you yeah, but then
a soft limiter on a V10 is still loud,
it
right?
is still loud.
So
And then also, if your Golf has a soft limiter, people just they don't rev anymore. They put it in launch control mode.
yeah, which is another way to get rid of it.
Yeah, what do you mean?
As in, to certain cars, if you
If the
launch control it, it
if it
revs higher.
holds up higher,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Where the yeah, and the Golf just has that kind of anti-lag spool, so it's way louder and stuff. But
and
it's
sounds like
annoying.
farts.
It sounds like farts. It really does.
We
Yeah,
do
yeah.
love the Golf here. Just saying.
Nah, it's just I wanted to like the RS6 because I think that the Audi design kind of was based on the RS6 and then adapted to the lower and
Yeah,
upper models.
yeah,
Kind of.
yeah.
But
Sure.
then stuff like the soft limiter and then the kind of the you know the reappropriated VW group kind of navigation and entertainment system bothers me. And
Yeah, but
and it bothers me at Audis because they're supposed to be luxurious. It doesn't bother me with Porsche because I know Porsche doesn't care.
yeah,
As long as you can sync up your phone with Bluetooth and you know you have your navigation going on, everyone's happy.
but
But
that's
it's
I
like
guess that's just on what you look for in a car, because I don't care either way.
right,
I look for the experience, right? Which there's a lack of in RS6s because they're way too heavy and they don't steer.
absolutely. And if you actually open a hood of a Quattro car, it just stares, it jumps in your face. Why? It's like the engines are mounted so high
High.
and so forward,
Yeah,
you know, over the front axle.
yeah.
Yeah. That's why, dude, during that tuning event, there was actually a guy who tried to do the donut pit with an A4,
Oh,
and he was just murdering his tires.
yeah.
Murdering them. Like, you should know better. I wasn't even
Right.
sure the guy had Quattro. Could have been a front wheel drive car, you know?
True.
Yeah, burning up the front outside tire. Even though, okay, we can all sit here and argue for hours about which one's better and what car brand has, you know, the most merit or whatever. But fact is, all of them, all three big ones, like like Mercedes, BMW, and Audi used to have more personality back in the day.
Sure.
And I
Sure.
think from all three cars, Audi is the one that lost its face the most.
True.
They're still pretty to look at, most of them,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just it leaves me so cold.
Yeah.
And it means something because normally Mercedes really doesn't speak to me.
Mm-hmm.
But at least the faces, like the new C Class, is a gorgeous car.
Yeah.
It's actually beautiful. I like the
Yeah,
E Class
yeah.
too. The S Class,
The new one.
the
too?
new E Class, I'm getting to grips with it, but it's still better than how the new 5 Series looks.
Yeah. Facts.
And I'm a BMW guy, so that should mean something. We're both BMW guys, so that should mean something. Because imagine you have the sound, but it also goes. Toot, 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 toot.
The 2
Yeah.
series goes to. I told you.
Dude, I can't wait for that car. If you
Yeah.
guys think that car is cool, you should see his BMW 2 Series.
Is it recording?
It is recording.
Oh.
I think.
Yeah.
Is it recording?
Right.
It is recording. I knew that. I
Trying
knew
to
that.
act cool.
Act cool here. To anyone who kind of knows cars, knows that, again, BMW is perfect example. They are really well known for being rear wheel drive. That's why the cool boys drive them, because
Fair enough.
you can do fun stuff with them. And in the last couple of years, so recent events, kind of the trend's been really going towards all-wheel drive systems, right?
Right.
And although I was really fearing for them to mess up the whole dynamic of having fun with BMWs, I have to say the X-Drive is magic. Like you can have fun, but you can have kind of safe fun, but at
Yeah.
the same time you're going way faster than you would be when you had just a rear-wheel drive car.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine, you know, like the M5 is perfect proof for it, that Quattro is far not as fast and quick and good as people were saying it is, because X-Drive just
Kills
wipes
it.
the floor with it, right?
Yeah.
So again, I am someone who does not like change. I'm a very conservative person. I want to keep traditions traditional. But the X-Drive has really proven me not wrong, but it's like it's given me hope. It's tilted me towards the right direction. But yeah, xDrive is actually good. And so the real question that I wanted to ask is if you think that all-wheel drive will replace rear-wheel drive soon or in the future, and if it actually will make rear-wheel drive like obsolete.
Yeah, I do believe so. Because of two main points is that unfortunately we live in a society where the majority always wins, right? So
Mm,
as we saw with the trend with SUVs,
that's a good point. Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody requests X-Drive, Quattro, and for Formatic, right?
Mm-hmm.
For Mercedes, right? So I think they're steering into that direction because there's a high demand on the market,
Mm-hmm.
but also because so there's actually 3 points. So X Drive got to the point where in M cars
Yeah.
you can just switch it off. You have the
Right.
best of both worlds, right? Which is I don't think is that hard to do in every other car. It's just that maybe they just want to keep the M level to a certain degree, right?
Yeah.
Have more fun, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And also because, like you said, it's safe. And I'm sorry to say, people are bad drivers. The roads are
They do.
getting worse
That's
and
true.
worse. And back in the day, in order for you to drive a fast real wheel drive
Although I
car,
don't agree about the roads. I
you
think that
think
the
so?
roads are getting better and better, and I think technology is getting better and better, and that's why the threshold of you driving like a stupid maniac and the car not being able to compensate for your driving anymore is so high that when you mess up, it's like at 180 kph,
Hmm.
and then it's really hard to catch.
Yeah,
Whereas like an
fair enough.
E36, you you know you put it out of balance, it's going to dance around a bit, but you're doing 40 kph, so you have a lot of time to catch,
Yeah, yeah,
and the
yeah,
new cars don't give you that wiggle room anymore.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, fair enough.
I just drove the AMG GT,
Yeah.
floor it, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine, diff is locked,
Hmm.
and then slight left turn at 160, snap oversteer. And that's really scary stuff.
It is. No, no, it is. But yeah, no, like I said, okay, the roads might not get worse. It's different opinions. Where I come from, the roads do
Fair
get
enough.
worse,
Yeah.
right? I think it's safer. And as I was beginning to say, back in the day, in order for you to drive a fast rear-wheel drive car, you had to know your stuff.
True.
Now, everybody wants to do it. Not everybody is capable of doing it. So
But you were conscious also that you were driving a rear
you
wheel
were,
drive car.
you were.
Were very conscious about what kind of a car they were driving.
Yeah, but speed was perceived differently
True.
because
Yes.
100 kph in that car
Mm.
is way different
Feels different, yeah.
than in this.
Not only feels different, it
It
is
is
different.
different.
Yeah.
It is different.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I think that it it will get to a certain point where everything's gonna be
But
unfortunately all-wheel drive.
are you talking about like the normal day-to-day business kind of car? Or are you also including the super sports segment
Right.
and
No,
the
that's a whole
niches?
different. No, no. The niches, I don't think. No,
So
we're
they
talking
stay
about
niches.
right. Yeah, we're talking about the majority, the consumer cars,
Yes.
right? I think because nobody in their right mind would buy who no let me say that in a way that's a bit better, right? So nobody who would want a car, let's say, fast enough and to be capable of certain performances would go for a all-wheel drive car. Everybody would go for a wheel because that's the feeling, that's what you're supposed to drive, that's how.
And ultimately, you can't replace it. Also, not
Of course. Yeah,
even not with an all-wheel drive car where you can switch off the mid-diff,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
right?
big time.
Yeah.
And it's fun to a certain degree. It gets boring at times. All-wheel
The
drive.
all-wheel drive,
Yeah, it's safe though.
fair enough.
I can't argue with that. It's really safe.
Yeah. No, I get it. It's I understand that if you drive, I know that it would bother me to have like an all-wheel drive fun car because the E36 I don't really need it, you know.
Hmm.
I'm not going far to work. I work in the building I live in,
Yeah.
and so basically it's just a passion that I've realized for myself So that's why having a rear-wheel drive car in that kind of a context
Sure.
makes sense, because you just want to have fun,
Yeah.
and it saves weight, and the car is not powerful anyways, so it's good. But then I really didn't understand at first when you said you're gonna spec the 4 Series as an X Drive,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of was hoping you weren't, but then you did, and when I got to drive it, I understood that it really doesn't take away anything from its
No,
nimbleness.
not
And
at
it's
all.
that when you get to know X Drive, you understand that BMW had exactly us in mind. People like us. They were
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, we want to give them the BMW experience. We just want to make sure that when they drive the car in winter, or when it's raining, or if it's like iffy conditions,
Yeah.
you're gonna still have the same kind of secure feeling as you are in dry conditions. And they really succeeded well. Because X Drive is so playful. Even the weird X Drive on the i8 was super playful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though it was like a fake X Drive, because the front was purely electric. But it kind of gave me hope, and it kind of settled me down in the way that, okay, BMW is still thinking about our fun, you
Sure.
know. So if that's the all-wheel drive that is going to replace all the rear-wheel drives, I'm totally fine with that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that we forgot about front-wheel drive. There's a lot of cars that are front-wheel drive that are fun enough. They're really fun. They're rackets, you know.
I would push
French
harder.
hatchbacks, man.
Right. 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 I would push harder a front-wheel drive car than a rear-wheel drive car.
You push harder,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, because it's safer.
It's safer
Yeah,
and nothing happens
yeah,
at the
yeah,
end of the day.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
I think there's brands like BMW that will keep some cars rear-wheel drive.
I,
Some
bro,
of them,
sure. Look at what they're doing,
but
and they don't have to. You can spec a real wheel drive manual
yeah,
M4,
yeah, sure,
right?
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
can spec a real wheel. Well, you can only spec a real wheel drive M2,
Hmm.
but they also give you the manual option. So I don't think that we won't get passionate cars anymore.
Yeah,
It's just that their focus is on the every day-to-day consumer, which is
yeah.
fine because at the end of the day they have to make money, right?
But it's just some brands. Some brands are gonna keep things as they are,
Yeah.
and then brands like Mercedes, like if all the Mercedes turned all-wheel drive tomorrow, the normal ones, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not taking AMGs, it's fine.
It's okay.
It's really okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't drift them well anyways.
They don't do that stuff.
No, I'm joking. There's a lot of people that try at the car meets, and
It doesn't
They
work.
it
Audis
hurts.
then?
Huh?
Aren't they Audis then?
No, it's no,
No, no, no, no, no.
no,
Whoa,
no,
whoa,
no.
don't get this
No,
confused,
it's
my
not,
friend.
because it's not the same. Because Audi's is just, forget. That's just outside of the bracket, right? But the Mercedes thing is just that. First of all, they are programmed to be very soft and not aggressive at all. Like I even tried to see if the E300D I drove had a
Mhm.
launch control,
Yeah,
9G Tronic, everything. It didn't. And even if you hold it on the brake and you release the brake, it drives off way too soft.
really.
Wait, it just leans back and it just starts going, and then the turbo kicks in.
Okay.
There's no clap moment. Like in the Jag, if you have the 8 the ZF, the 8 speed,
Mhm.
there's like it takes off right away.
Sure, but that's
Like you have
really
trouble.
programmable, though,
Yeah, true.
right?
But generally Mercedes are really soft in their way, because it's about luxury, right?
Which is like, go for it if that's
Perfect.
what you want to
Dude,
do.
launch controls, it's the most stupid shit anyways.
Yeah.
Like we don't really need it.
Sure.
Yeah, we really don't though.
Yeah, but
How
it's
how
fun.
often have you used it on the 4
Never.
Series? Never.
Never.
Right.
Yeah, never.
I mean, I know one of the reasons why you didn't, but
Yeah, but
it's
I
like,
don't.
but
Yeah,
nobody would check
yeah.
to see how many launch control starts you did on a 4 Series, you know?
And it
It's
does
just
have it.
because if you hold it a bit on the brake, it's fine. It's enough. You know, it will just drive off.
Brake boosted.
It brake boosted, you're good. Yeah. So yeah, let's see. I don't know. I think a couple of brands might keep their rear-wheel drive product just because it's really true to their brand. I think an MX-5 will always stay an MX-5.
Of
I
course.
think that BMWs will always keep a couple of rear-wheel drive cars around. I would actually be fine if they just kept one of the cars in every lineup also a rear-wheel drive option, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if there's a 4 Series, if they kept like like a 430i rear-wheel drive, just
Yeah,
for the people who want it, I'm totally fine.
fair enough. Fair
Yeah,
enough.
I just like the idea that there's rear-wheel drive cars out there. You know,
Because that's what we're used to.
it warms my heart.
Yeah.
It's just the right thing. Yeah. Okay, I have one question. I think that one's pretty tough though. Is the best car to have come out in 2023?
Right. So,
And parallelly to that, I'll open up a list of cars that have come out this year. I'm going to read a couple of them, okay?
sure.
You
But
start
then,
thinking.
do we consider cars that started production in
No, no, it
2023?
doesn't matter. Just cars that were announced, okay?
So, the best car
Yeah,
in 2023.
yes.
You have to give me a bit more details.
Okay.
Can we do categories? Because that would narrow it down for me quite a lot.
So the best car that has come out so far in 2023. Like the what excites you? What gets your blood pumping? What car can't you wait see to see driving around in the streets?
Right. So, first thing comes to mind is the Revolto,
Yes,
right?
approved.
Right?
Yes.
I know for a fact it's going to be a weapon.
Yeah.
Yeah, really fast, and they have to have at least a better infotainment system than like the one that they had for 10 years,
Well,
basically.
yeah.
Right? And I just think that. But you know what saddens me a bit? It's a double clutch, and I get it. Sure.
But that's the main reason why it's going to be fast.
Yeah, but is it still the flagship V12? That's my question.
It is.
You think so?
Yeah, it is.
I
I
mean,
think
right,
I
because
think
there's no other thing to like compare it to in a certain extent,
Yeah.
right? So there, it is the flagship V12. It's just that I think by how cars are so easy to drive nowadays,
yes.
right? I think the Aventador is going to be an easy car to drive to a certain extent,
Yeah.
and that saddens me a bit because the Aventador
Sure.
and the
Okay.
Murcielago before it, and every V12 Lambo,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They were animals. They were hard to control, and you had to have big cojones in order to drive those,
That's true. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It does excite me. It saddens me as well.
Yeah. I think that it has a lot to do with how they will program the double clutch.
Mm-hmm.
If they program it like it is in Porsches and at the AMG GT, where it's like perfect seamless shifts that are super quick,
Yeah.
it kind of defeats the purpose a bit. I think a Lambo should always stay a bit raw and dangerous. But then I think that a lot of people who owned the Aventador would have loved to have a double clutch in them
True.
because it's a lovely car to be in, actually.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the only point that really made them not take it on like a cruise or like holidays and stuff was that it's very
Yeah,
uncomfortable
but
to
it
drive.
wasn't meant for that, first of all.
Yeah, sure, but
It
then
was
if you
meant to.
compare it to the F1 gearbox of Ferrari before they ended up with the double clutch, that actually
Yeah.
was a gearbox that worked.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked kind of daily, but then especially when you were going fast.
Yeah.
But the Aventador gearbox wasn't even quick when you were going fast.
Yeah. It was just
Yeah.
madness.
Because you shouldn't have a, like, if you watch the car wow races, you shouldn't have a Performante beat an SVJ like that.
Right.
That shouldn't happen
Right.
if it's really the flagship model. So
But
I'm very interested in how it's going to sound, to be honest.
it's going to sound really good.
I saw the video
You
you
saw
sent
it?
me
Right,
today,
right.
and it kind of calmed me.
Right.
I was like, it
Exactly.
sounds really good.
You know what concerns me about the car? What happens when. Actually, no, because we all know what will happen. You're going to have to pay for it. But how much are you going to pay when that hybrid system breaks down?
Okay, yeah, true.
Right? Because
Yeah.
look at Teslas. If you're unlucky and your batteries go out, you can just throw it out, buy a new car.
Basically,
Right.
basically, yeah. Yeah, well, let's see, because then there's the Lambo Premium on top of it as well,
Right.
because it's a brand. So
That's going to
yeah,
be expensive.
but I think that's one of the issues that a lot of people will face with all the cars that come out. You know, an
Sure.
SF90
Sure.
and
And on that note, the SF90 has a 7-year warranty.
yeah, that's true.
So,
Yeah,
do you even care?
no,
Right.
no,
Lambo only comes with 2-3 years tops.
that's a good point. Yeah, yeah. Let's see. I don't know. I mean, I trust it because the hybrid comes from VW Group,
Right.
so it's kind of going to be safe. But then it's true. If push comes to shove, people will sell. Now I said I'm a bad boy. People will sell their kidney to, you know.
Yeah.
So on that note, there was another car that came out, which is the McLaren 750S. That's a disappointment, right? Maybe we
I
judged it
mean,
too quickly. Maybe there's something there.
I didn't judge it because you know how I am. I have
Yeah.
to see the car, feel the car in order for me to properly assess
I'm
something.
looking at the picture right now,
It
and
doesn't bother me
it's
that
not
much.
bad.
Right.
It's not bad,
If
right?
they fixed what they had to fix with
Reliability.
reliability issues,
Mm,
sure.
agreed. Yes.
And what really makes me happy is that it's not gonna break the bank, unlike
True.
every other supercar there is,
Yeah.
right?
I do have one big issue with it though, and that's the exhaust. I think that the 720 looked very nice because of those, you know, the
Yeah,
double
yeah, yeah.
exhaust that comes out, and the new one just looks horrible. It looks like
You
the
have a
plug
picture
from
pulled up?
your, yeah.
Show me. Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah,
It looks like the plug where you plug your iPhone in.
but there's
Like
potential there.
there is potential there, but if I pay 300,000, you should already give me something that looks
Yeah,
good. This doesn't look good. So you had all the possibilities. You could have used the 600 LT kind of way
exhaust.
of going out, which
Right.
is awesome, by the way. I don't know. But I think that McLaren never really intended the 720S to be the beauty queen. So the
Not
750S
at
is
all.
just,
The
you know,
facelift.
revamped, facelift, whatever.
Sure.
But I'm really interested into the fact that everyone who knew the 720S knew that in reality, all of them, most of them had like 750 horsepower.
Mm-hmm.
So now, did McLaren save money and actually just rebrand the 720S and really didn't change anything about it? Or is it really a 750S and then
Right.
there's going to be more power?
But they did change the suspension on it.
They did.
Right.
They revamped a lot of things, and also the electronic dampers are different.
So I think for
Yeah,
sure it's going to be faster than the 720.
it has to be.
It has to
It
be
has to be.
because that would have been a big disappointment,
Yeah,
right?
that's a disaster.
But
Yeah,
at the end of the day, if you lose seconds on engine power or you lose seconds because the car is just an all-around better car, do you really care?
if it's an all-round better car,
Right.
I'll take that any day.
Right.
Because
So
I
I'm not
think,
mad about it.
especially when you hear about the big pain that people suffered from
Yeah.
having a McLaren,
Mm-hmm.
if the car is like 5% slower, but I'm safe,
Yeah, I'll be good.
I'll take that car.
Of course, because you're
Definitely.
never going to drive it on the street with
Nah.
its. I don't think you have to be a really good driver to drive it on the track with its full
True.
capacity.
Yes. That's a lot of power. Those are weapons, yeah. And then there's another car, which is the new Aston, right? DB12.
Yeah, they should have kept the V12.
Well, we should be happy that they're going to keep it as the DBS. So there's going to be a
Right.
V12 somewhere,
Sure.
and from how it sounds in the Vantage,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
so
Fair
someone
enough.
did make the OPF work.
Mm-hmm.
Because if my car sounds like that stock, I don't care about
So
an
you
OPF.
you know my opinion on OPFs.
Right.
OPF cars who are not meant to have an OPF, they just got adapted with an OPF,
Yeah.
sound really bad. But as you saw, this car, who was intended to have an OPF from the beginning, sounds decent,
True.
right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying it sounds amazing, but
Yeah.
it's really decent.
Yeah, but then you have cars like the new M4, and in my opinion, those are really big disappointments.
But
And then there's
Right.
Porsche GT3 and the GT3
Sure,
RS.
sure,
Where you're
sure.
like, how
But
did they
then-
make this work?
200 euros and an M4 and 2 tubes will make it sound amazing.
Yeah,
You know
fair enough.
that the simplest mode is to take out the X pipe and the intermediary pipe,
Yeah.
which is like 200 euros to
Yeah.
do, right? And then you're golden.
Yeah, that's absolutely valid point. I just think that if you spend that kind of money with the kind of legacy you're buying into,
Sure.
you shouldn't be let down like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's just what I think. Right. So those are kind of like the sporty cars. Then the Aston, as we said, I think
Right.
it looks really good.
It's beautiful.
It's
It's
I mean, it's Aston.
It's an Aston.
It's an Aston.
Yeah.
They will never look ugly, except the Signet. I don't know what you guys thought when you were like that
Mm.
idea. That was not a good idea. Okay, I think a really good one to end it on from the ones that we still have on the list is. Do we actually know cars, or are we just pretending?
Right. Think about it though, because it's with basically everything, right? It's not even about cars. The more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
Yes, that's
Right.
true.
So,
Yeah.
at which level do we say that we actually truly know cars? Or are we just pretending?
No, we're not pretending.
Right.
Because
no.
we're not pretending anything.
Of course, it was just like a.
Yeah.
making
Or
it
are
out
we?
of a-
Yeah. Do we actually know cars? Well, I'm someone who's very, how do you say, dogmatic? No, who's very methodical in his thinking, right?
Mhm.
So if you're pursued by my logic, it's like, have we grasped the core idea of what a car is and how it works?
Which was taking you from point A to point B, right?
No, not that. It's
No,
like
I
more
know
of
what you mean.
the history, like the general idea of the car, of like, okay, that's an engine and that's how it's supposed to work, and then tires are really important, and people like don't give tires enough credit, and that's why, by the way, another topic I wanted to, that's actually a good idea, I'm going to write it down, is people I'm veering off topic here, but people using Nürburgring times to argue why a car is better than another one.
Right.
And then they're like,
Right.
the Honda Civic Type R is so much better than the Maserati MC12 because it's
Sure.
faster on the Nürburgring.
Sure,
And I'm
okay.
like, well, give it
Then-
new tires and try.
Bro, no, it's fine.
You know what I mean?
I would rather sit in my Maserati than in your Honda.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
What color is your Maserati? If you're gonna go for a front-wheel drive car, there's so many other options that are 10 times better. And I do
And
understand.
all of them are old school.
Right.
All of them.
Yeah.
And old school, and then old school ones, and then the Mark 7 GTI.
We have to consider the Fiesta ST.
Yes, Fiesta ST.
It's a badass
Fiesta
small thing.
ST.
I love that thing.
Never wrong that thing.
Yeah.
But 205 GTI.
Damn, yeah, true. Fair enough.
Civic Type R is a really interesting concept, and I do believe that the engineers did great work.
Amazing.
Obviously, they did.
Just don't make it look like a spaceship.
It's yeah, man.
You
It's
had
been
one job.
designed by
9-year-olds.
with rulers.
Right.
Weird
And-
shit, but the new one looks good though.
Yeah, it does.
The new one truly looks good.
It does.
But it still is a car where I would think I would love to drive one, and I would love to drive one fast, just to see if it really works out with the front differential. But even if it amazes me, I'll never own one.
Right.
I'm sure.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll never own one. I'm prepared to spend 20,000 euros on a really good Renault Clio Gordini edition, Williams edition, first
Right.
Renault Clio, dark blue, golden rims. I'm gonna blend it into the video because it's a beautiful car.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
I don't know if you like it, because
No,
I don't know if
I
that
do.
strikes your taste.
I do. It's just that it needs waste.
Yeah, okay.
No. Okay. The rims are way too goldish. They should be a bit
But it's
darker.
the 90s, bro.
Bro, I do get that.
Bus seats had designs. You understand?
Right. Everyone was
Bus
on
seats were
cocaine.
like purple and yellow and mint green and shit.
Yeah, no, that's badass. So we should talk about like the best all-around car spec, and we already know
Damn,
which
that's
it
deep.
is,
Yes.
right? Because then there's right. We don't want to get into this now because it will take us hours. But then we have to broaden our horizons a bit because green over tan doesn't work on everything,
No, it doesn't. And
right?
on that point, funny enough, today when I just I think I went yeah, I went to my dad's place. I went to my parents. I was thinking of you because there was a 4 Series Cabrio and it was green over tan. And the
Right.
colors by itself looked great.
But
It's just that it's not supposed to go on
yeah,
that car.
yeah,
It just isn't. And I'm someone who loves green over tan. I'm
yeah.
someone who would spec a lot of cars green over tan, but that one wasn't it.
I like blue cars.
Blue over tan.
Really depends on the car as well, though, and it really depends because I wouldn't spec one at my age blue over tan,
No, nah.
right?
Not all the like most of the cars you wouldn't.
Yeah,
A Bentley, I still would.
yeah, fair enough. But then you wouldn't get out of
You
a Bentley.
wouldn't get a Bentley in
Yeah.
that age, yeah, for that. If it's a difficult question to ask because we do know cars. If you measure us by the big group average of people in society, we do know cars very very well. And to be honest, I haven't met. That's how we became friends. Is because each one of us has never met another person who was not only that much into cars but knew about cars that much,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
But then there's people who have very specific knowledge about certain cars,
sure.
and that's and then there's people who have that specific knowledge over a wide array of cars, and that's very impressive. People
Yeah.
like Jay Leno
Yeah,
or people like JP.
right. I was about to say
Those
that.
are people who, but that's only because they've had the opportunity to work with these cars. And I only acquired the understanding of that when I started searching for my E36 to buy one. I first looked at what you have to look for when you buy an E36, and then the more I dug, the deeper it got, and then I went like, damn,
This is circling
there's
back
so
to the
much to
first
know.
question,
Yeah,
right? Pick a car
yeah.
and just do your research.
Do your research.
Yeah.
Do your research, and then I started learning the names of the rims, the official BMW names, but also how people called them, and then by whom they were produced,
Right.
and then you get into that
Okay.
whole, and you understand. Someone like JP knows all of that because he had to do all that research to buy an E36. He had all the generations of Golf. He and generally, if you get that knowledge about Volkswagen Group cars, you can apply it over such a big range of cars.
Fair enough.
Because if you understand VW cars, basically you understand 5 or 6 brands. You know about 5 or 6 brands
Yeah.
now. Now with Skoda and Seat and all
Sure.
that stuff going on. So do we know about cars? Yes, we do know about cars, but there's so much more to be known.
And that excites me,
That excites us.
right?
That's why we can just keep digging and we never get bored because every day you learn stuff. There was something today that made me go aha. I just forgot what it was, but it was like it's those crazy facts where you go, did you know that car was the first one with an active rear spoiler? And then you go like, no, I didn't.
The
Damn.
more you know.
Okay.
Right.
I think we're gonna end it here
Sure.
because we realize that there's way more topics that need time to be talked about, and
Big
we don't
time.
want to fly over them without having the opportunity to discuss them in depth. So we're gonna leave an open end this time, as the first time of
Fair enough.
hopefully many. And it was great having you. Next time, I hope that we can present the brand further
Sure.
with an
Sure.
in-depth review, hopefully that I can make of your cars,
Sure.
so that people see them, because it's really, I wouldn't say it's completely unique, but it's very different to how the mainstream tuning is being done on cars. And I love the quality and the passion behind it. I will link everything in the description from his Instagram to his website and anything you guys could visit just to get a bit more of a behind the curtains of what actually involves building up those cars, specking them, and then tuning them, all the stuff that he's doing himself and is really well documented. There's a TikTok account. Everything will be linked up in the description. And yeah, other than that, I wish everyone a really pleasant day, and I'll see you at the next one.
Thank you for having me. It's been
Definitely,
amazing.
man. As always. Yeah. Ciao, ciao.